The Ohio State Buckeyes are set to hire Matt Patricia to be their next defensive coordinator out there in Columbus. Y'all, typically, I can get behind a lot of different hires. I can get behind an internal hire. I can get behind taking an up-and-comer as your next coordinator or whatever it may be. I am not a fan of this hire. We'll unpack it right now. If you're an Ohio State fan, we checked the board over at Letterman Row, our Ohio State on 3 site, before jumping on here and talking some ball with y'all. And my first thought was like, will I feel the same as them? Am I missing something that maybe the Ohio State fan base is juiced about this? Our instincts were aligned with y'all. You're also not a fan of this. Bottom line, if you're an Ohio State fan, make sure you subscribe. Want to hear from y'all. Want to hear your take on this thing. If you're a college football junkie, we're talking ball all year round. Make sure you're dialed in here. Best way to be dialed in, again, by being subscribed to the channel. So let me rephrase what I just said at the top of this show, top of this segment. I am not a fan of making Matt Patricia your defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Doesn't mean it can't work. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have some skins on the wall that could be exciting to you, depending on how you look at this. But in terms of what I would have wanted for my next DC at Ohio State, this checks essentially none of the boxes. Essentially none of the boxes. Like, I would have wanted a guy who has been in college. Matt Patricia hasn't been coaching in the college game since early 2000s, where he was a GA for Syracuse on the offensive side of the ball. So we have that. I would have wanted a guy, if I'm an Ohio State fan, the wish list is usually includes a guy that's from Ohio. Matt Patricia, not from Ohio. So getting everything that comes with being at Ohio State, whether you're a coordinator or whether you're on the roster, whether you're the head coach, it's not going to be something that I think he is able to acclimate to right away. Not saying he can't get it, but again, parachuting into this thing, not fired up about it. Don't have the continuity of what you had last year. One of the big reasons why I would have gone internal, personally, if I'm Ryan Day. The temperature was set at a national championship level. The credibility of whoever you promoted internally, I have to believe, would have been pretty well intact for the rest of that locker room because you were in the trenches with that team during the Michigan loss, into the playoff run, and hoisting the hardware in Atlanta. I think there's something about having been in the foxhole with your guys when times are bad and being on that staff that would have provided some extra credibility, extra juice if you promoted them to be the DC. Neither here nor there. That's not me telling you Matt Patricia doesn't have credibility, because he does, given his NFL track record, but it doesn't sit as well with me if they had gone in that direction and gone with someone who had at least been around Ohio State, even if it wasn't this past season. I mean, if you'd just been an alum or been a part of a different, tangentially related to Ohio State, that would have pacified my desires for this DC hire a lot more than bringing in a Matt Patricia. So again, I'm not a fan of this. The other part of this is I don't think this is going to provide continuity for years to come. Like, I don't think Matt Patricia is going to stay at Ohio State for the next 3 years. If we're being honest, this is probably a one-year deal for him. This is probably a thing where he coaches next season and then takes the first NFL job that he can this time next year. That doesn't sit well with me at Ohio State. Like, that doesn't help recruiting necessarily. Does it hurt recruiting? I don't know about that, but it definitely doesn't help things. That doesn't help with the pitch of, hey, if you come play for me, I'll be here when you graduate. That's becoming a more difficult ask in college football, but there's a lot about this that feels clunky, feels quirky, and just feels like you went with the most notable name as opposed to maybe who would have been the best next fit at Ohio State. So I have my own issues with this hire. I've made that very, very clear. I say that and put all those thoughts on one side and come to the other side and say, well, hasn't Ryan Day earned this a little bit? Like, whenever you win a national championship, they hand you, and they being the fan base, the college football public, the powers that be at Ohio State, they hand you some metaphorical trust chips. Hey, Ryan Day, you have earned our trust. Here's some chips you can cash in whenever you want. The issue, though, is Ryan Day turned back around and said, okay, I'm cashing in those chips right now. You don't want to wait a few months before? Nope, I'm cashing them in. You just won the national title, less than a month ago. You want to cash in some of those trust chips already? Yep, cash them in right now. And so if this goes differently than how I'm communicating, I think it could go, give Ryan Day all the credit in the world. And I know nothing, and he knows everything, if that's the way this whole thing shakes out. The issue I have, though, is Ohio State's not just looking to make like a good hire to compete for a 10-win season again next year. Ohio State's trying to make a hire to allow them to repeat as national champions. Now, funny enough, they won 10 games in the regular season that propelled them to the playoff, to where they got hot, to where they won the national title. But, like, when Jim Knowles got hired originally in Columbus, there wasn't this thought of, man, I hope it works out. It was, sick, we got one of the best DCs in college football running the show for us. Same deal with Chip Kelly. When he got hired, even when Bill O'Brien got hired, nobody was wondering, man, I hope it works out. Why? Because there was legit skins on the wall at the collegiate level of what they were going to be. With Matt Patricia, I find myself holding my breath a little bit like, okay, could it work? Do they still have a good defensive staff? Do they still have good defensive talent? Of course. Do they have a guy that's going to propel them that extra 10% from competing to be in the Big Ten championship mix to then winning national championships? I don't think that's the hire. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't end up that way, not saying Ohio State won't still have a really good season, but this is not a hire to me that just solidifies Ohio State as a team that's going to be right back in the national championship. So I don't love it. I don't get the fit. I don't get the I guess, background, if you will, with how this matches up with being the right guy at Ohio State. If it works out and they end up winning a national championship, again, all the credit to Ryan Day. He's earned it. He's earned some benefit of it out here, but I don't see it. I don't get it. I'm not a huge fan. Ohio State fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Get at me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Tell me if I'm just way off base here and I'm making something up that isn't real, but I'm not seeing it with this one. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We'll keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.